Hi, my name is Mario Deniz. I am a Florida licensed real estate broker and the owner of Deniz Realty Partners. I'm making this video because I'm sure you've heard rumblings about changes coming to the real estate industry. And I want to try to break those down for you so that you understand what you might be getting yourself into beginning August 17th of 2024 if you're a home buyer or seller. If you've ever sold a home in the past, you understand the way the process worked. You would call your favorite listing agent or a group of different listing agents to choose the best one to get the job done. They would come and share market stats, comps, staging, marketing approaches, and all sorts of things that are relevant when you're trying to get your home sold. When we talk about compensation, typically, a listing agent would tell you what their listing fee would be, and then they would tell you what percentage or what part of that listing fee they were willing to share with someone, another real estate agent, who brought the buyer over. This was in the spirit of cooperation. The residential real estate market is so accessible to buyers and sellers because the bedrock of this industry for over half a century has been cooperation. As good as I am as a listing broker, I am not as good as over 1 million real estate agents who are currently working with loyal buyers looking for homes for them. And so that's why we share the commission, because cooperation resulted in the best possible outcomes. Going forward, as a result of the decisions in this lawsuit, the compensation field is being removed from the MLS effective August 17th. Meaning buyers' agents working with buyers will no longer have access to that information. And so first, let's talk about sellers. Will sellers still be able to offer an incentive? Yes. There's going to be 3 different ways a seller can offer an incentive to anyone that brings the buyer, to those buyers' agents who are working with buyers who are loyal to them. The first way that they can provide an incentive is going to be by doing an offer of a concession. Meaning in the MLS, they're entering a new field that's called a concession field. And so a buyer's agent could reasonably assume that the purchase price, that concession, is something that they'll be able to obtain for their buyer. The second way in which a seller will be able to provide an incentive to the agent who brings the buyer is by doing an offer of direct compensation. Meaning, instead of the commission going to the listing broker and then the listing broker sharing it, they can do an offer of compensation that goes straight to the buyer's broker. The problem? We are not able to share that information in the MLS. The third way will be the same way that we currently transact, in which you sign a listing agreement that outlines what portion of the commission the listing agent is willing to share with whoever brings the buyer, and then that listing agent will share that portion of the commission with the buyer's agent. Again, the problem is this information will not be available in the MLS, and it is no longer allowed for us to be able to share this information in any website that gets their feed directly from the MLS. What this means for buyers is that before looking at a house for the first time, buyers are now required to enter into a buyer brokerage agreement. This is a contract between the buyer's broker and that buyer, which outlines a lot of different terms, including obligations, but also compensation. Buyers will now be responsible for paying that compensation to the buyer's brokers. If you're a buyer listening to this and you're saying, oh my God, that's really going to cut into our savings, you are probably right, but there's ways around it. Yes, commissions for buyer brokerage will now be paid at closing. It is no longer going to be built into the price and no longer going to be part of the financing of the home. It will be part of the closing cost. And so as a result, buyers making offers on homes will likely be doing so requesting concessions from the sellers towards their closing cost in order for them to be able to make ends meet. So in a situation where a buyer is getting a concession from the seller, all we have done is, instead of having the seller sign a listing agreement that outlines compensation for the listing broker and what portion of that the listing broker was going to share with the buyer's broker. Now the seller is going to sign the listing agreement with the listing broker. The seller is then going to offer a concession to the buyers, who then will use that concession to pay their buyer's brokerage. If this sounds less transparent, more confusing, and less clear, you're not alone. Although the spirit of this decision is supposed to be for additional clarity and transparency, it's hard to explain this to people, as I have, that are not a part of the industry, and have them conclude that this provides additional transparency. Commissions have never been fixed. They've always been negotiable. Offering an incentive to buyer's agents, it's never been about listing agents negotiating the commission for a buyer's agent. It's always been a listing agent negotiating the best possible chance to get this home sold in behalf of their seller. I've sold a bunch of cars in my life, and I've always understood that the best way to get a car sold is to let my close friends and relatives know that if they know someone looking for a car, that I'd be willing to give them a little incentive, a commission if you will, if they find me a buyer for the car. It shouldn't be any different when you sell real estate. So to recap, beginning August 17th, if you want to look at homes with a buyer's agent, you will be required to sign into a buyer brokerage agreement before looking at the first house. If you're a seller, understand when you're signing a listing agreement that whatever offer or compensation you want to give to an agent who brings the buyer is not longer going to be displayed anywhere in the MLS or anywhere in the internet. It will be important, if you're looking to sell your home, that you ask your listing agent if their brokerage will allow them to share some of their compensation with the buyer's broker. The reason for that is there's real estate brokerages that will not allow their agents, starting in August 17th, to share any part of their commission with a buyer's broker. I don't really understand this decision, but I know there's been plenty of times in my career where that negotiation between agents, that ability to share commissions with each other, has been the difference between getting a deal to close or not. I want to reassure everyone of our buyers and sellers that although I still don't believe these changes are in the best interest of the real estate industry, particularly buyers and sellers, we're committed to embracing them, making the best of it, staying dynamic, and serving you with the highest integrity, service, and result, just like our motto states. Thank you and have a blessed day.